A woman writes, and she might as well be writing for, if we were honest, at least half of us who are listening, possibly more. She said, I've been listening to the Facebook Live sessions, the page you're on right now. It all makes perfect sense to me. I can see how everything you say could make a huge difference in our house. My problem is one word: anger. It's something that I've been struggling with for years. I have prayed about it, I've meditated about it, I've yogaed about it, I've been to therapy about it. And pretty much at this point, I don't believe I can lose my anger. And at this point, with the preparation you've had, with the trauma you've experienced all through your life, you probably couldn't give it up, certainly not on your own. As just a beginning, we'll talk more about this. Go to the Facebook Live, the page we're on, Loving Parents Live, Unit 11, and listen to what I said in great detail and with considerable boldness and directness to the mother of the girl who was becoming more angry and depressed during this period of social isolation. Really, go there and look at that segment where I talked to the mother about her angry daughter, because it all applies to you and to most of us who are listening right now. And everybody will notice that I keep suggesting to people, no matter what the question is, that we go to reallove.com and look at the thousands of hours of resources there. I mean, you could spend the rest of the month there during your social isolation, and instead of just being isolated, you could come out a different person. How could that be a bad deal? Or go to realloveparents.com and keep looking at other sessions or units of this Loving Parents Live Facebook group, because there's no quick, easy answer to any parenting question. I see this on the internet all the time. How do I get my child to blank? And I know they mean well, but the author says, oh, you do these 5 things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I read the 5 things. Each of the 5 things is true, but in the absence of unconditionally loving the child, it will do nothing. Really, it might temporarily distract the child, but it won't do anything. So there aren't any little 5 or 3 or 7 or 95 simple steps that we can take to solve even one problem that we're having with the child. Before we can begin to deal with even one issue with the child, or frankly with ourselves, there's a great deal of understanding that we need, and we need to feel loved ourselves. Until that happens, the answer that I give you, the end answer, wouldn't make any sense. When parents write me about a problem that they're having personally or with their kids, it's much like, during these Facebook Lives, for example, it's much like that they're asking me a question about calculus. Could you show me how to solve this calculus problem, this differential equation problem, this nonlinear mathematics problem? Those are advanced forms of mathematics. But if you don't know addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, then without that background, what if I actually answered your calculus question? I wrote it out, showed you how I did it. You wouldn't understand a word of it. Really. Just like if you called me over the phone and said, I hammered with a nail and it's entered my eye here. How do I fix it? I could describe to you over the phone how to do it. And without the preparation, without the practice, you couldn't do what I was saying. You couldn't. There has to be a foundation. The basics are required before you can understand calculus. In fact, in college, if you go to take a calculus course and you haven't previously taken the trigonometry course and the algebra course and the basic mathematics courses, they won't even let you come in the door, which is just common sense. And I'm not trying to be mysterious. I'm not trying to delay the answers or make it sound like, well, ooh, there's a complicated answer. It turns out the answers are not complicated. The answers to our problems are not complicated, but they do require that we build things in a certain order. They do. Re-roofing my house, for example, turns out not to be all that complicated. I've done it. But you have to know how to pour a foundation and build the rest of the house first, or there's no sense putting roofing on anything. If you put roofing on the ground, it's not going to do any good. So what I'm saying is that parenting involves first understanding ourselves, why we think, feel, and behave as we do, and only then can we just begin to understand the thinking, feelings, and behaviors of our children. Now, back to your question, which was about anger. That was a lot of preamble, and yet necessary. As a child, you, the mother with the lifelong problem with anger, badly, sorely, desperately needed somebody to love you unconditionally, which means loving you without anger, disappointment, controlling, none of that. Unconditional anger doesn't involve those things, just loving and teaching. Now, I don't know the details of your life, raised by one parent, two parents, beaten, not. It turns out I don't need the details. When I see most people, the first time all the information I need is right there on their face. No kidding. I see the end product. If you're that angry, and in your own words, you have been, and can't stop it, again in your words, you were not unconditionally loved as a child. And if you didn't get it as a child, the chances that you just stumbled into a pit of it as an adult are close to zero. You weren't loved, period. Full stop, as the Europeans would say. Anger is a reaction to the pain you experience from not feeling loved. So if you're angry, it's a reaction to the pain, and the pain emotionally is always that we weren't loved. So the solution becomes pretty bloody obvious, doesn't it? You have to find somebody to love you and help you heal, just as I told the mother to explain to her daughter in Unit 11. Read that, what I said. Now, that's just the beginning. Without that, there's no way you can address the damage that you are unavoidably causing your children. You first have to address your own anger. So, where do you get this love? Because it's like, so how do I pour a foundation if I'm going to build a house? Where do I get the concrete? How do I mix it? It's a process, and you have to get pretty good at it before you pour your first foundation that matters. You could start off by reading the book, Real Love and Parenting. Cheap, easy, download it as a Kindle, costs virtually nothing. Or far better, because there's a great deal more material and there's tone and facial expression and far more details. Engage yourself in the 45 hours of training of the Ridiculously Effective Parenting Training found on realloveparents.com. You need that as badly as somebody with cancer needs chemotherapy. I had patients every day who came in and said, "Doc, what do I have?" And I would do an exam and I would say, "You have this." And they say, "Well, what do we need to do?" And I say, often I would say the only way to treat this particular problem is to do an operation. "Oh, I don't want to do an operation." And I go, "You don't have to." And that was very disarming to people. "What you just told me it has to be treated with an operation." I said, "Yeah, but you don't have to do it. You can live with the problem." And they said, "But I can't live with the problem." And now we're back to the solution. I'm not going to make you. But you have to feel loved yourself if you're going to do anything about your anger. And you have to do something about the anger if you really want to be a loving parent. So in the meantime, while you're finishing the Ridiculously Effective Parenting Training, there's lots of things that you can do. You can go to reallove.com and look up in the drop downs on the menu. One of them is Finding Real Love. And it'll give you different ways to find it and how to find people that can unconditionally love you. Then there's a drop down that says free conference calls. So far, notice you haven't spent a penny. Free conference calls, you can go on the calls. You can come to this Facebook page and tell the truth about yourself. Oh, this is the hard part, see? Everybody wants to be different, but do I actually have to describe my problem? Yeah, you actually do. And find people who can accept and love you right here on this Facebook page. I come here to the Facebook page looking for people who are telling the truth about themselves to give them an opportunity to see what it feels like to be loved. I've actually called some of these people who put their problems on the Facebook page. But you don't get anything if you don't put something out. Nothing. We want to feel loved. We want to keep all of our problems a secret. No, it starts out, what do I say on the Facebook page, you might say to yourself. This one, the one you're on now, where in the comment section or whatever's below this video, you can tell how much I know about Facebook. It's really easy what to say. You say, "I've been a really stupid parent. I haven't known what to do with this child who does blank. Here's what I've been doing with the child. It never works. I feel like a complete idiot. Period." There, that's what you say. What was that? 3 sentences? Maybe 4? And then you find somebody who says, "Wow, do I ever understand?" Now, stop. Don't rush through this. You say, "I've really been an idiot of a parent." And somebody says, "Yeah, I get it. Me too." That is a moment of unconditional love. That's it. We wonder what it looks like. Is it some magical thing? Is it accompanied by angels singing? Do harps play? Does the sun come out? No, it's real simple stuff. I can remember the first time I experienced a moment of identifiable unconditional love. I was talking to this ugly old man who was probably at the time younger than I am now. And I was describing my years of drug addiction and misery and anger and unhappiness. And when I got done with it, he said, "Well, okay then." And I thought, are you deaf? What he'd done was said, "Pretty okay then." What he meant was, I get it. I've experienced that. I understand what you're talking about. Now, what are we going to do about it? Which is then what we talked about. Unconditional love starts with listening, and people will do that for you if you come here to this page. But if you don't speak, how can you feel listened to? It starts with listening, understanding, and then occasionally words. Occasionally somebody might say, you might consider this. But advice and words are optional. Listening and understanding aren't. It takes guts to tell the truth about yourself the first time. To come on the Facebook page and say, I've been angry at people and at my children my whole life, and I'm killing my kids. Oh, that's a really good start. It takes guts, but what's the alternative? Continuing to live a life of anger? That's not going to work. That will never work. Anger just feeds on itself. In fact, the more you express your anger, the angrier you get, as studies have proven. Another step. Find somebody, and I just gave you some ways, coming here to this page, going on conference calls. Find somebody who is willing to listen to you and love you, not sympathize with you, not feel sorry for you. Oh, you poor baby. Oh, so you had a hard childhood. Well, no wonder you're angry. No, sympathy doesn't heal anything. Feels good for a minute, but so do glazed donuts. There are such loving people. Now I want a glazed donut. Shouldn't have used that one. There are such people who can love you. And then when they simply accept you, like that grizzled old man who went, well, okay then. I believed him that he cared about me. I believed him. I trusted him. Trust the people who offer you unconditional love in moments at a time. Believe them that they're loving you enough just to spend time with you, talking to you, and answering you when you talk about yourself on the Facebook page or on the phone or by Skype. As you identify these people, get their contact information, send them personal Facebook messages, which I still don't know how to do. Get the personal information so that you can talk to them by Skype and see their face as they care about you. You'll see it. You'll feel it. I've been recently working with a man who has been a porn addict for, his whole life. So for, say age 10 to age 40, that's a long time. Been to treatment, been to his church leaders, been to everywhere. I can't remember how it all came to be, but I was talking to him by Skype for several days in a row. And he said to me, I've been clean from my addiction for several days, and I've done that before just by, gritting my teeth and white knuckling it is what they call it in addiction recovery, hanging on till your knuckles turn white. He said, but I've been clean from my addiction for the first time that I can remember that I didn't do it out of a sense of obligation. If this man can recover from 30 years of addiction to porn, you can recover from however many years you've been addicted to anger, because you're an anger addict. Like you said, you keep being angry and it keeps hurting people, and you keep being angry and you keep trying to stop and you can't quit. That's the definition of an addiction. If he can do it, you can do it. How did he do it? He believed me when I loved him. This is a guy who's, 40 years old maybe, and I'm talking to him by Skype, and I live 1,000+ miles away from him, and I just listened to him and loved him. And he said, I didn't use today because I didn't feel like it. In fact, he said the last time we got off Skype for about an hour, it felt like wonderful. He said, welcome to what it feels like to be loved. Now, to the woman who says, I've been angry my whole life, that's what I'm doing with you right now. May not seem obvious to you. I'm not just answering your question. During this entire conversation, this entire Facebook Live, what have I been focused on? You and your pain that lead to your anger. If I told you shouldn't be angry, no, waste of time. Criticized you, looked down at you and gone, oh my gosh, you're hurting your kids. What a terrible mother. No, you're just in pain. So I've been loving and teaching you in exactly the way you've been looking for your entire life. This is a profound moment. And if you're watching this and you don't happen to be the lady who has the addiction to anger, it's not a whole lot different with you. These are free broadcasts. I don't get anything from them. I'm doing them for you. And how often does that happen to us? This man with the porn addiction that I was talking about. First thing I said to him when I met him by Skype, didn't know him, never met him before, nothing. And I said, this is going to be different for you because I might be the only person you've ever known who doesn't have an agenda. I don't need you to do anything. I don't need you to respond a certain way. I don't need you to understand what I'm saying. I don't need you to agree with me. I don't need you to be grateful. I don't need you to anything. He was sold right there. He was done. He trusted me from that moment on because everybody has an agenda with us, which, by the way, honey, is why you're so angry. Everybody wants something from you. They want you to change. They want you to be different. They want you to give them something. They use you, abuse you, mistreat you, treat you unfairly. Everybody thinks of themselves when they interact with you. And there's a huge part of you that just finally exploded years ago and continues to explode with, I can't take this anymore. And so far, all we've been talking about is your way out of this. This is cool. You can do this. Read Real Love and Parenting with your kids. Why? A couple of reasons. Normally, we tell the truth about ourselves to people who can love us. As you tell the truth about yourself to your kids, that you've screwed up as a parent, that you've been stupid and made mistakes and been angry and unloving, you're not doing it so they will love you. When you do it with your kids, you're doing it so that they won't be confused anymore. Because up to this point, the only thing they could assume when you get angry at them is that you get angry because they're, defective. Because they're stupid kids. And I wouldn't be terribly surprised if you had, I would be surprised if you hadn't used that expression. Not that I ever did. I did. You tell them you've been wrong. And you see a great illustration of that in Unit 11. These are magical words for a child. You see a child who's unhappy and you come along and you say, honey, the only reason you're unhappy is me. It's my fault. I did it. Most children will go their entire lives and never one time hear their parents say, it was my fault. I was wrong. It was not your fault. Never, ever hear those words. How do I know that? Because I hear people tell me that all the time. Now, last, this one may seem almost like impossible, but no, you can do this. I have not described a single thing to you that you can't do. That would be just mean. You get to make a decision not to be angry ever again. Now, pause. I know you've made that decision before. I'm not going to do it just like I made the decision 1,000 times. I wasn't going to use drugs again. What I mean is not express your anger at your kids. You can be angry. Go ahead. Just not with them. You come on the Facebook page and you say, here's my primary question. How can you kill a child and bury them in the backyard and leave no signs? How can you beat a child up and leave no bruises? Every parent will go, I understand this question. You express your anger at whatever, your child, your husband, life, your entire past, to adults who can love you. And as you tell the truth, and as you're loved at the same time, they both have to be there. You tell the truth, which means you're vulnerable and you're open. Because now that you're open, you're also open to being loved. And then somebody loves you. That's how you heal. You made a decision at some point in your life, no matter how inconvenient it would be, that you would stop for stoplights, didn't you? I did. I stopped for every dang stoplight, even though I'm going, but I'm in a hurry. And there's no traffic, across the road, but I still stop for the stoplight. Every time. Why? Because that's what works. Me deciding to stop, when I feel like it, that doesn't work. A car comes out of nowhere, I'm dead, they're dead. Same with anger. I made a decision not to express my anger at my children anymore. Oh, I was still angry on occasion. And I said, I'll be back in 10 minutes and we'll talk about this. And you have to say it just like this. If you say, I'll be, and blood's coming out of your ears and fire's coming out of your eyes, and you say, I'll be back in 10 minutes. Well, that just makes your child terrified for 10 minutes. No, you go and talk to some adults, get loved, feel the healing, and then you come back and you talk to your children. You establish, and we've talked about this policy before, a zero tolerance for anger in your life. You have every reason in the world to be angry. You've been hurt enough, but none of them are enough. Talk about your pain to somebody who can love you. You conclude by saying, I react to everything my kids do all the time. I'll bet you do. My husband and kids are the same. They react with anger to everything. I bet it's just a firestorm in your house. It's a constant. Needless to say, there is no harmony in our home. Well, honey, how would you like to turn that around? Then listen to this Facebook Live again. Listen to the entire thing and do it. Do every single step I suggested. I have never seen somebody, never, do every step that I talked about with you just in the last several minutes in this one conversation. I've never seen somebody do all the steps and end up angry. But you have to be fully committed, or you'll live with the anger and you'll be poisoned to death. Your husband will be poisoned to death, and your kids. Are they not all worth it? Sure, you just need it away. And here's the way. But now you have to really do something truly different. You have to do something about it. I think you can. Give it a shot. New subject. In Facebook Live unit number 12, so that would be the last one, I talked about the man with Down syndrome who became a master sergeant in the Air Force. You probably remember that and how he did it. And I asked him how he did it, and he said, I just kept going. One day after the other, taking one test after the other. In the military, if you just keep doing that, they keep you and they keep promoting you. He just kept doing it. In keeping with that subject, a mother wrote me about how during this time of people distancing themselves socially from each other, many people are realizing how alone they feel. Turns out the truth is how alone they've always been. Previously, before the distancing, they had been able to distract themselves with gatherings, getting together and getting drunk and having parties and barbecues and blah, 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 blah. I've seen those parties. I've been to those parties. And everybody's drunk and happy and eating and filling up with everything else except connection. So the connection really with each other is pretty superficial. If you don't believe so, have a party sometime. Supply nothing to drink and nothing to eat. See what happens. Really. The emotional toll of this additional isolation as a result of a pandemic is just bringing out the sense of isolation that we've had all along. And it's becoming more pronounced by the day with the addition of fear and confusion and inconvenience and lack of funds and on and on and on. There was an author named Ambrose Bierce who once wrote about solitude, which we're experiencing in this isolation. And he defined solitude as being, quote, in bad company. Witty little stinker, because when we're isolated, we're with ourselves, the worst company of all. Cute, but often true. Because one thing that we can't do, we can open up ourselves to other people loving us. And after that happens, we can open up ourselves even more and love other people, but you can't love yourself. If you're dying of thirst in the middle of the desert and somebody comes up and says, well, just give yourself a drink, you'd look at them like they were crazy. We need each other. We need each other to love and to be loved by. So this is a really good time to do what we can do to find love. Now, find it how? Well, I just described it in the entire preceding part of this particular Facebook Live. By phone, by text, by email, by Skype. Come to this page for Facebook Live, conference calls, go to reallove.com. All as I told the angry woman, I call her that because she identified herself in that way, earlier in this session, get the contact information of total strangers on various Real Love sites and Facebook pages and talk to them. It's just not that hard. And I gave you examples of what you could even say. I've been a terrible parent, or I feel lost and alone right now in this period of isolation, or I've felt lost and alone for my whole life. Lead with the truth. Lead with your whole face. Now, is it possible that the person that you say that to will have absolutely no idea how to respond? Yeah, that could happen. So what? Unless you lead with your whole face, you're never going to find the people who can see you. And we can't complain about feeling alone if we're not doing what it takes to change that. You can meet people in the park 10 feet apart and talk to them. On the whole, most of us are afraid to be with people, to be open with them. We don't have any experience with it. It's kind of a skill that we develop. Most of us don't have it. It's notable that we do find it easier to talk to children who are strangers. Do you know why? You know why? You'll see people who don't talk to anybody else, and they'll stop and they'll talk to a child because we feel safe with children. Children don't say, wow, put on a few pounds, yeah? Or, did you ever find a job? Or, you still underemployed? No, children don't do that. So they just look at us with that innocent little look. We find it easier to talk with them. But adults, we fear their criticism. And my answer to that is, so what? They don't really know us. If you talk to somebody who is not accepting of you, I promise you they don't see you. They're not able to love you. So now what? Move on. How long did that take? Seconds, a minute maybe. Move on to the next attempt of telling the truth about yourself. And I've already talked about many different ways that you can do that. In addition to finding people on Real Love sites and on Facebook, write a list of people you know, people that you have talked to in the past and haven't talked to in a while, and start connecting. Some of you are thinking, there's no way in the world I can do this. Well, then why come here and ask for answers to questions? I'm not joking. Unless we're willing to connect and find the unconditional love we need, there's no way we're going to be able to address our children's problems. I know it's a little blunt, but it's true. Let's do an exercise to help you do this. You will commit to call somebody that you haven't talked to in a while. Make the commitment. Write it down. Write down that person's name, like now. Go ahead, find a pen. Write it down on a piece of paper. Write it on your arm. Write down their name, and you're thinking, well, because everybody does. You're not unique. But what would I say? Those 4 words stop more communication than I could possibly tell you, because people are afraid of what they're going to say to people. Why are they afraid? Whether they know them or not. Because they're afraid they'll look stupid and will feel disapproved or disapproval. So let's come up with something for you to say. We're going to solve your problem right here. You already written down the name of the person you're going to call and connect with in this period of relative isolation. And now I'm going to give you something to say. And you're going to listen to how unbelievably simple it is. You can change the words all you want to. This is just a framework. Or you can use these exact words. I only propose these words because I've proposed them to hundreds and hundreds, more than hundreds, of people before, and they've done it and they work. So You can change them if you want to, but you can use them. Quote, I just called to connect. Who's going to be offended by that? I mean, it's kind of flattering. I just called to connect in the rest of the sentence, although you don't have to say it, with you. You. I value you enough that I would want to call and connect with you. So far we got one sentence. I just called to connect. I was sitting here feeling alone in my apartment or house or tent or wherever you live, and I just wanted to hear a human voice. Dash, if you're really picky and you're into grammar, and M dash. I just called to hear a human voice dash yours. So you just told the truth about yourself, that you need to connect, that you're feeling a little alone. You want to connect with them because you must, to some degree, value them. You just said 4 important things in how many sentences? 2. And I just gave you the words. So now you've written down the name of somebody. You don't have the excuse because I don't know what to say. So do it. Do it when you get done watching this segment. Conversations evolve from there. Somebody will come up with something to say, but you're afraid that you won't or they won't. They will. If it's somebody who wants to connect, it will just happen. If it's somebody who doesn't want to connect, you're going to know that pretty soon. It's going to become obvious pretty quickly. The person you call doesn't really want to connect. And if they don't, you go, nice talking to you, goodbye. The entire conversation doesn't have to last longer than 60 seconds. You weren't talking to that person anyway. You weren't talking to anybody anyway. So you got nothing to lose. You lose nothing if somebody doesn't want to connect with you. Then what do? You move on. It's so simple. By calling and saying those 2 simple sentences, what did you just do? You moved instead of complaining. You did something. Doing nothing gets you pretty consistently nothing. Well, except older and maybe dead. You exercised faith in something unfamiliar to you. You expressed trust in the person you're communicating with. People like being trusted. We don't ever think about the person's reaction to this. They like being trusted. They like to hear that somebody wants to connect with them. So you'll be surprised at how many positive responses you'll get. I hear every day about how people reach out past their comfort zone and they are rewarded with a vulnerable, touching conversation about feeling alone, being afraid, and loving the connection. But you're never going to have a conversation like that unless you initiate it. Other people aren't going to initiate it with you. The odds are just, unfortunately, really tiny. This is life-changing stuff. If you do this, you're being vulnerable. When you say, I'm just feeling a little alone, that's a pretty vulnerable thing to say. In a movie, if a man walked up to another man in a group and said, I've been feeling kind of alone. That would have to be a comedy because no guy would ever admit such a thing. And yet guys walk around and the biggest problem guys have everywhere they go is that they feel alone. Why do you think the man I was talking about before, just a little bit ago, uses porn? Because he feels alone. Because he needs more sex? Ridiculous. I've talked to more porn addicts than probably people you know. I don't mean just porn addict. People you know. They don't use porn because they like sex. They use porn because they feel alone, and it creates a virtual world where they've got marginally more than nothing. Some people won't want to talk to you. Again, move on. You can't complain about being alone if you're doing nothing about it. It's a law. It's a new law. We just passed it, signed it. Move. Keep going. Which brings us back to the master sergeant that I was talking about. This guy said, the secret to my success, I just keep going. And it will be the secret to yours. Like the mother earlier in this chat who wrote to say that she's plagued with her anger. What did she do? She did something about it. She wrote to me and told me about it. And now I know who she is. So that was vulnerable. That took guts to say. And now I have faith that she'll find other people to talk to. I loved her right in this conversation. And if she talks to other people, she'll find other people to love her more one-to-one than in a Facebook Live. We can all do this. We can all find these people who love us. Why? A, so we'll be happier. And then B, the subject of this Facebook Live, until we feel loved, we've got nothing to offer our kids. So first we find it, and now we have what our kids need most. We have to give them. That's a pretty big deal. I think we can do it. I'll see you tomorrow.